Whoa. We're in for a barn burner today. Gracious sakes. Good afternoon and welcome to this service of celebration as we together celebrate the life and the joy of Jonathan, Patrick, Arthur Thompson, known just simply as Jonathan. And he sure does know how to pack him in, I have to say. So today we're going to celebrate that very joy he brought into our lives and into our world. I'm Jonathan's favorite uncle, Trent. Lynn and I would always send cards throughout all the year, occasion cards to Jonathan. We'd always sign it, your favorite uncle and aunt. He always knew who they were. Or at least I hope he did. Anyway, yeah. Although I was mistaken for his grandfather once, so he chuckled over that an awful lot, because as you know, he had a great sense of humor. We do want to thank Pastor Sean Creven and the Havelock Wesleyan Church Community of Faith here in Havelock for sharing in their hospitality of this wonderful facility that we can all gather in on this beautiful fall day. With me today, leading in this service, which has been lovingly crafted by the family, are Jonathan's favorite aunt, Gayleen. Yes. Yeah. No, we're all his favorites, aren't we? And his Uncle Keith, who's going to offer the eulogy, and his sisters, Krista and Amy, and then nephew Hunter, all taking part. Jonathan's pastor, Tim O'Blenos, and also songster, Trevor, is going to lead us in song as well. And lastly, just a word of thanks to cousin-in-law, Jonathan's cousin-in-law, David Watson, for helping out with the video presentation that we're going to see later on in this service. But I do want to convey our sincere sympathy to my dear brother, Arthur, and his loving wife, Sheila. I think they should be sainted for all they did for Jonathan. You just don't get that kind of love and care. I know they got a lot of strength from family and from friends and from their church community and from their faith, indeed. But we really do need to acknowledge those 39 years of wonderful care. A son couldn't ask for anything more than two great parents like you. And also to Krista and Amy and Hunter, you know, the best sisters and nephew a guy could have. Always there to lend a hand and to be with Jonathan at all times. A wonderful family. We can certainly see God's hand throughout it all. Of course, we want to extend our sympathy as well to his grandmothers, to Isabel and to Ruby. They too all had a hand in helping in Jonathan's upbringing in one way or another. And to his many, many uncles and aunts and great uncles and great aunts and cousins, and wow, the list goes on. Other family members, in-laws, and of course extend our sympathy to his church community, the New Tuscott Baptist Church community of faith, as well as the community of Weymouth in general, because I know Jonathan touched many lives these past 39 years. And so with all that in mind, we want to keep all of them in our prayers now and forever, really, because I don't think one ever really gets over the loss of a loved one. And maybe it gets easier, but it never gets easy. So, this is also meant to be a joyful time, I know. And we have a few other guests in the crowd today wearing some sweatshirts that acknowledge some of Jonathan's teams. What do we got? The Chicago Cubs, yes. Go Cubs, go was on the sign when we came in. And then we got the Blue Jays, of course. And where's the Habs? Montreal Canadiens, of course. I always thought Jonathan had excellent taste in hockey teams, the Montreal Canadiens. He did indeed, didn't he? And then, of course, Go Canada Go, the Canada's hockey team. And and the Mooseheads when he was in Halifax at St. Mary's University. Of course, he would cheer for the Halifax Mooseheads. He was a great sports enthusiast, and I know he would probably, in his head, be out there on the ice or out on the floor or on the field. Well, whether we who are gathered here today have a Christian faith or faith in this life but not in anything further, or among those who are unsure about any of this, we nevertheless, we share in common the real and overwhelming sense of loss at the death of a loved one. And we will each, of course, have had our own experiences of Jonathan's life and death with different memories and different feelings of love, maybe some grief and respect. And as Christians, we believe that every life is precious and that there is hope in death as in life. And our hope for a continuing life after life is founded in the understanding and experience of the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. This understanding underlies many of the words used in the church on occasions such as today. But whatever words are used, our common desire is to give thanks for life and for the good in Jonathan's life, for mutual comfort and for future life. There's nothing like music to help heal the soul. Right, Gayleen? Yes, I am. Jonathan's aunt, Gayleen, is going to lead us in a song entitled, I'll Be Somewhere Listening. We're all going to sing together, aren't we? Come on up, Isabel.
Thank you, Trent. That was a beautiful opening for this celebration of life. Now, Jonathan did not want a sad party. He wanted a party. He wanted happy songs. He said no sad songs. He just wanted everybody to be happy and rejoicing. He's rejoicing, running, kicking, jumping, flying, having the time of his life. And he just believed that so truly to his last dying breath. So I'm not singing this morning. We are singing together, and we're singing a song Jonathan picked out that he would be somewhere listening for his name. So except for the family, if everyone would stand with me, and we're going to sing, raise your voices. You're standing, okay, you're standing. And on the chorus, we're going to clap because that makes it more of a party, right? Okay.
When he calls
tag team going here. Keith.
It's good to see everyone here this afternoon. I'm glad Pastor Trent upset the pulpit because I didn't have to do it, because I would have probably did it. And with him speaking as long as he did, I told my wife, I wish she would sit down and shut up, because I won't have anything to say if he keeps on going. Then she gets up here and blabs on, so I think I can go sit down. Now, well, we all miss Jonathan. I'm sure sometimes this week my mind just wandered, and I said, I can't believe he's gone. He was just always sitting there in that chair when we can most remember, and smiling and saying funny jokes. Well, he said, like Galen said, that he wanted to have a party. Sit me up in front and have a party. And so this could be called a celebration of life, but for Jonathan, it's a celebration of death, because he is happy now. He is up there, and when he got there, I'm sure, through the pearly gates, he met lots of people, sure, but one of the first ones I'm sure he met was his grandfather, Mullen. And what did his grandfather Mullen say? Some of you probably don't realize that he was like this, but he said for sure, "What's your name, Jonathan Thompson?" Because if you know him, that's what he always said when he met you. "What's your name, Keith Saban?" So, and then I'm sure my brother Larry was there, and they started teasing each other and running. Because my brother couldn't run since, I don't know if he ever really could, and Jonathan never did. He waddled when he was young, but he never did any running. But he performed the act in a way, because when the children are all out in the yard playing, they would decide to run over there across the lawn. So Jonathan would start running. When they got halfway to where they were going, he'd meet them coming back, and then they'd run this way, and he'd turn around and go to follow them, and then they'd meet him come back again. So he never got to where he was going, to where the kids were going. But he never complained. The only time I think that he ever complained was later in years, in the last year or so. And if you know the Sabins, and we would be like this, when he couldn't eat anymore, he was sad and complained. But otherwise than that, through all his hardships, he never complained. Well, Jonathan lived longer than we expected. He lived 39 years, as you know, and one of the few people, even till later years, could I remember my wife's birthday, but I could always remember his, because he always said he was born on May 13th, because he couldn't in younger years say 13. So for some reason, that always stuck to me. So as you can see in your little bulletin there's lots of things in there that I'm going to say. He did many things living with muscular dystrophy. He graduated from Tagan High School. He won speaking contests in the French school there 2 times. Went to St. Mary's University, and also to Divinity College in Cadia, which he didn't finish because his health wouldn't let him do that. And some of his other accomplishments, he actually received a badge in swimming, because he took swimming when he was young. And he was a member of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And also, as you can tell by Joey down here and Trevor, which Trevor is kind of hiding it, and I'm going to steal his thunder because he's probably going to wear this. He was bat boy for their team. And sorry about that. So he was bat boy in the Weymouth Little League. And Muscular Dystrophy Walk Marathon was named after him. And he was also an honorary member of the 603 Cadet Corps. Those are some of the things, along with others. And he experienced, those were his accomplishments, but he experienced a lot of great living as well. Things he did, as you read in your bulletin. He had a canine companion, which he picked up in New York and was there twice. And he actually went, I remember him saying that he went to McDonald's on Manhattan, and they had a grand piano and a man in a tux playing at McDonald's when you went in. And that kind of enthused him that McDonald's would have that. And he made 2 trips to Florida, one with Dougie Gidney and one with his parents, to enjoy the things there and the Magic Kingdom and all that. He had breakfast with Ken Dryden at the Clare Golf Course Club, had lunch with Dave Winfield at Old Orchard Inn, and on a sports note, he met some of the Blue Jays team members when he was in Toronto with his father to see them. He tried on one of their World Series rings. One of let them try it on. And he met Joe Carter while he was there. Some of these names probably we would relate to, but some of the young people wouldn't. He enjoyed riding in Prevost Lake in Dave Rose's boat. Sometimes his uncle let him fall over and bang his head on the floor, but he also had, I think, if I remember correctly, him and I took a ride on a tube behind Dave's boat. And that went pretty good, but it was a little scary. He had a helicopter ride around Digby County in I think it was a military helicopter or search and rescue or something. And the pilot actually got in a little trouble over that, but anyway, he experienced it. He spent time at the Sabins hunting camp back in the Fourth Lake area, and my father was there, and I think that's going to be a little bit on the video. And my father asked him if he brought his rifle. He said, yes, I'm going to deer hunt. And he had a little tour rifle that he got in Florida, and he said it was his 30-30, so he was going to hunt while he was there. He really enjoyed the Lawrencetown exhibition. Most of all, the ox pulls. That's what he wanted to see, was the ox pulls most of all. And he would pretty well, if they would have taken him, he'd have gone every night that the ox pulls were on when it was being there. I can't tell you the story exactly, but you all know he was quite the jokester and liked to tease people. Well, I don't remember exactly what happened, but we were at the Lawrencetown exhibition, and we were standing there, and the RCMP, John McGinnis, that used to be the head guy in Digby, that we knew a little bit, he was there, and I don't remember if they didn't have their jackets on or didn't have their hats on or what, but Jonathan just was sober. He said, aren't you supposed to have your hat on, if that's what it was? I don't remember. And they said, yeah, but don't tell anybody. We're just having a relaxing day. Why did you ask? He said, I'm taking a report. I'm going to report to your superiors. So he could come up with stuff quickly. Jonathan, as you know, he had many challenges, probably more than most of us know here. I know even for myself, when I would see him somewhere in his wheelchair, he would almost seem like, okay, he's quite almost like the rest of us. He's going around talking and so on. But when you got home and realized what was going on, especially for the last 20 years, he could do absolutely not one thing except breathe and talk by himself. If his hand fell off the joystick, somebody would have to help him adjust it. If it was outside and a mosquito got on his ear, somebody had to get that mosquito. He could do not one thing for himself, and that hit me because I would go there and sometimes I would forget how handicapped he was, but he never complained. He couldn't ride a bike, never rode a bike, as far as I know. And like I said, he couldn't keep up with the kids. But he experienced things. He had 11 broken bones in his life. One, he was at McDonald's and an electric wheelchair malfunctioned, and his leg was in under the solid table, and the chair tipped back too far, broke his leg. Another time, he was being rambunctious getting off the bus and didn't stay in the driveway and tipped his wheelchair over in the yard and broke both shoulders. And he went to camp, which in Tignish for, I forget how many years, 5 years at Tignish, a camp for handicapped. And they dropped him there and broke a leg. I think it was a leg or an arm, doesn't really matter. In Riverdale at our house, he went to push the sliding glass door open like that. But when the door stopped, he didn't stop. He kept on going. Broke another, what was that? An arm or leg or something, doesn't matter. Arm. So he had lots of, and there's others, 11 altogether. And at age 13, he went to Halifax to have surgery on his back because you couldn't really tell in the chair, but when you saw him in the bed, his back was really, really crooked, crookeder than what we can imagine it was. So they put 2 steel rods up beside his backbone to straighten him. Well, that should have taken 8 weeks to heal. He was back in school in 3 weeks, and the surgery should have been like 8 hours. And they finished it in 4, and it said it was a model surgery that they could use to teach other doctors. It went that well. So he experienced things, some not good, but some good. And he loved. He loved. He fell in love twice. Never worked out, but he still fell in love. He experienced that. And he loved to watch all kinds of sports. And some of you here, thank you for coming to his Super Bowl parties and going and watching sports with him. That was great, and he loved that. He loved playing games. Somebody would always help him move the cards or whatever game he was playing. And if it was games night at the church where we did, what did they call it when those quizzes thing we did at the church sometimes? Trivia. We always made sure that he was on our team because he could answer most of the questions. And then when you watched movies with him, or Gillian and Sheila, all of us would be sitting around, well, what was that movie that so-and-so played in? Jonathan? Right, he'd tell you exactly what happened. So we'd watch a movie that might had 2 or 3 movies before, and Gillian would say, Jonathan, I don't remember this part. Why is it like this? He could tell you exactly why this movie was like this because of this, what happened in the movie before and the one before that. He could always explain to you what was going on because he never forgot those movies. And he always knew the actresses' names and actors' names. If you wanted to know who played in such and such a movie, he could tell you. So, and as you can tell, we're jumping on to sports, as was already mentioned. He loved his sports teams, the Cubs and the Canadians, and they were some of his favorites. But he said he couldn't help but cheer for the Blue Jays because, why? They were Canadian. And that was his attitude. In conclusion, we all have memories of Jonathan's. Some will make us laugh for sure. I know that. Probably everybody here has encountered Jonathan sometime or another, and probably most of us have been encouraged by him. And never would it have happened that he lived 39 years if it had not been for his exceptional mom, who was not only the world's hardest working mom, she was also the doctor, the nurse, and the maid. And not to leave out Arthur, who was most often his mosquito swatter, his hand fixer, his cheek pusher, because, you know, he could get food caught in here and he didn't have enough muscles to get that food out. You think he, like I said, he couldn't do things. He had to push it and get that moved around. And that was Arthur. And not only that, Arthur did all the worrying. What was nice, we could just depend on Arthur to worry about everything, and we didn't have to because he would worry about it. If you told him somebody you knew in Halifax was sick, that he didn't even know, but it was somebody you knew, he'd worry. So he's the worry part of the family. And to all the people, to his helpers who helped him through life, came watch games with him, played games, watched sports, physically helped him in and out of bed, especially Amy and Krista and Hunter and Sheila and Arthur. I'm going to say for Jonathan, thank you all for your blessed love and kindness.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, so we're going to enjoy all these pictures up on the screen, thanks to David.
Tell me, what does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free like they say? Does the sun shine bright forever? Have your fears and your pain gone away? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're dancing in the sky. I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. And I hope the angels know what they have. I'll bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. So tell me, what do you do up in heaven? All your days filled with love and light. Is there music? Is there art and invention? Tell me, are you happy? Are you more alive? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're dancing be singing in the angels' choir, and I hope the angels know what they have. I'll bet it's some nights up in heaven since you arrived, since you arrived.
Trevor, come on. I was going to say come on down, but I guess it's come on up.
So, Keith already stole my thunder with the hat. But as a fellow Cubs fan, I brought the hat, and I'm sure Jonathan would be okay if I wore it in church today. When I get where I'm going, on the far side of the sky, the first thing that I'm gonna do is spread my wings and fly. Gonna land beside a lion, run my fingers through his mane, or I might find what it's like to ride a drop of rain. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears, and I will share these sins and struggles I have carried all these years. And I'll leave my heart wide open, and I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. Gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step, and I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck, yeah, when I get where I'm going. There'll be only happy tears, and I will shed these sins and struggles I have carried all these years. And I'll leave my heart wide open, and I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. So much pain and so much darkness in this world we stumble through. All these questions I can't answer, so much work to do. But when I get where I'm going, and I see my Maker's face, I'll stand forever in the light of His amazing grace. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed these sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open, and I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, oh yeah. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. Hallelujah. And I will love and have no fear. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Trevor. Lovely words, lovely words. Speak to us all. I'm going to invite the pastor, Tim O'Blennis, to come forward, representing the good people of New Tuscott Baptist Church, Jonathan's home church. Pastor Tim.
What a wonderful song to represent what Jonathan has waited for a long time. When I get where I'm going, well, he's where he was going. He's home. And I've been asked to read a couple pieces of scripture and have a prayer. You know, you can be involved in 1,000 funerals and they never get easier. This one's particularly hard because Jonathan was my friend. Not just a parishioner, but a friend. I wish I had known in some of those younger pictures that I saw, but I didn't know him then. But I knew him in the last 10 years or so. And he was an intellectual giant, you know. He was. Not a lot of people knew that, but he was a highly intelligent person. And along came with that a marked sense of sarcastic humor. And he would pick on you, but you could never be mad at him because you knew he was just poking the bear to get a laugh. And we did that, whether it was I liked Boston, and he, you know, and with his father as well, we joked about the teams and whatnot. But my wife and I were talking a little while ago, and I said, you know, the hard thing is that his family's going to miss him. There, I did it for you, Keith. However that works. And you're stuck with this, I'm so sad that he's gone, but I'm so happy that he's gone. And somebody said only God can help you smile through a tear, and that's kind of how I feel. That in this great sadness, there's great joy in knowing that you have empty hours now, but great memories. And with that, I'll read Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Say amen to that. Let's have a prayer. I'm just going to leave that down there. I'm so used to leaning on ours that, anyways, let's have two prayers. Okay, here we go. Our God, we owe it to you to know Jonathan, having brought him into this world, having given him to Sheila and Arthur and Krista and Amy and their family, for all the memories that we saw, the songs that we've listened to. Hard as it is, I would never wish Jonathan back, because he's free. He's free. He's finally free from the prison of the body that you let him have. I've heard so many stories of how he inspired people's faith. Significant stories of significant people who would say in personal conversations how much their life was changed spiritually as a result of his tenacity and fortitude and faith in God. And we know through his family and through the grace of our Lord Jesus that that is what's made this all possible. We thank you for this great crowd who's shown up today, not just to support Arthur and Sheila, but to honestly say goodbye to a friend and a loved one. We miss him already, but we have sweet memories in our heart of him, and we give you praise for that, Lord Jesus Christ. Knowing that Jonathan was a professed Christian, he loved God. We had many, many theological questions and debates over the years, some fun, but some serious, but Jonathan knew what the Bible said. He lived out a life of faith by your grace, and there is no doubt in our hearts now that he is free, like those that have gone before us said. He's up there running around with Larry, walking without a cane or a chair or anything like that, in newness of life. For that we give you praise. In Jesus' precious name, amen. They've asked me to read one more portion of Scripture. This was Jonathan's favorite. You saw at the end of the presentation how the eagle swept down and went back up, and how potent that is, and how Jonathan loved eagles. His room was filled with them, whether they were statuettes or pictures or whatever. The last several weeks we had the church full of eagles all around on the different tables and windowsills and stuff. This is Isaiah chapter 40, verses 28 to 31. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and a young man shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and they will not faint. Amen. I'm going to let you touch that. I'm not having anything to do with it.
Thank you, Pastor. Move this back here. Thank you, Pastor. Krista and Amy, you coming up to read? Is that high enough for you?
Yep.
Yeah?
Perfect.
Okay.
Where's our volume got to go to?
Right here.
Mom said to make sure everybody heard me. I've never needed a mic in my life.
I know.
Here we go.
What do mothers know, right?
Yeah, she knows what she's talking about.
Two okay?
Yep.
Okay, off we go.
We got to be good. It's for him. When Tomorrow Starts Without Me by David M. Romano. When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not here to see, if the sun should rise and find your eyes are filled with tears for me.
I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say.
I know how much you love me, as much as I love you, and each time you think of me, I know you'll miss me too.
But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand that an angel came and called my name and took me by the hand.
And said my place is ready in heaven far above, and that I'd have to leave behind all those I dearly love.
But when I walked through heaven's gate, I felt so much at home when God looked down and smiled at me from his golden throne.
He said, this is eternity, and all I promised you. Today your life on earth is past, and here it starts anew.
I promise no tomorrow, for today will always last, and since each day's the same, there's no longing for the past.
So when tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart, for every time you think of me, I'm right here in your heart. Now, I'm about to say some stuff, and I'm really not sure where it's coming from. I felt like I had to speak. I guess he's been gnawing at me for a week and a half now. That's why we needed so much time. So, Jonathan and the good Lord have a real sense of humor. Jonathan trusted the Lord beyond anything. And when I went to church on Sunday, the whole church service was about pastor appreciation, but it was about trusting him. And so I've been praying for 25, 30 years that if something ever happened to Jonathan, that he would please just go in his sleep and not suffer. So I got what I asked for. And I always wanted to be able to say to him that I loved him before he passed, so he knew just how much he meant to me. And I got that too. But in return, I got 2 words from him. He called us on Wednesday to tell us that I don't think I'm going to be here much longer. And he had 2 words to say to me, and they eat at me day in and day out, just 2 small words: smarten up. Now, I didn't think I was that bad of a person, but he told me I had to smarten up. And he's right, I do need to smarten up. And so I got to say my goodbye and tell him I loved him, but in return I got these 2 words that said I had to smarten up. Jonathan didn't want to leave us. He didn't want to miss out on anything. He wanted to play games. He wanted to, just be involved in absolutely everything. And he always will be. He's with us wherever we go. And every day I'm reminded of those 2 words, smarten up. And Jonathan was a strong witness. If any of you have ever heard him speak or even just have a conversation with him, he's very deep. He's very funny about it, but he's very deep. And just on his deathbed, that's all he had to say to me was smarten up, because he wants me to be there with him. He wants to see us all again. He told someone else he didn't want them to be angry at God. Of all the people in the world that has a reason to be angry, would have been him for everything that he lost. But you've seen in the videos, not one picture did he not have a smile on his face. If he can love God and trust God and be that way, then why can't I? He loved you all so very much, and he wants to see you. I don't want to turn this into a you got to go get saved sermon or anything. That's not what I'm here for. I just want you to know that he loved you all. He loved me, and he knew that my big mouth would have to say something before this was all over, so he told me to smarten up. So here I am, smartening up. Also, I'm smiling and laughing on the outside, but I have been hurting. I am going to miss him. He wanted me to be happy today, so I'm trying my best to be happy. He is happy. He's running. The only thing I really am is jealous, because I haven't got to see him run. Like everyone else up there is getting to see him walk and talk and laugh and play, and I'm missing out on it. I want to play too. Exactly. Also, Sunday morning, I don't want to go on too long, I'm sorry, but Sunday morning my mom called, are you going to church? Well, I'd been up for an hour. I didn't have any reason not to go to church, so I said, yeah, okay. I got ready and I went to church. And it was a pastor appreciation day for the pastor, but it was all about trusting God, but it was the youth doing the service. Anyone that knows me knows I've always loved the youth in the church and always wanted to do my best to work with them and help them have a better life. But that was Jonathan. That's that week and a half that we had to go through. He got me in that church and he showed me the youth group. I was wondering, how am I going to get back to God? Because I'm an all in or nothing type person. So when I jump all in, I got 15 Bibles, I'm studying, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But Jonathan, because I had asked that question, him and the Lord decided they'd show me. And I'm going back to youth on Thursday night, and I'm going to work with the youth and try and claw my way back to being a better person. Now, also, one last thing. Jonathan asked me and Amy not to sing. That was our thing. We'd always sing around his bedside to make him laugh, and in those last days, it was no different. So, I'm going to sing to you, because I'm getting the last word. It's just a joke between him and I, so if you don't get it, I'm sorry. I'm not a great singer, but if I were a kangaroo, I'd hop right up to you. And if I were an octopus, I'd thank you, Lord, for my fine looks. And if I were a fuzzy wuzzy bear, I'd thank you, Lord, for my fuzzy wuzzy hair. And if I were a child born with MD, I'd thank you, Lord, for making me funny. But I just thank you, Father, for making me me. 'Cause he gave me a heart and he gave him a smile. He gave him Jesus and he made him his child. And I just thank you, Father, for making him him.
Oh, Krista. We all need to smarten up, my dear. Truth be told. Let's pray. May the words of my mouth and meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Amen. Someone once wrote these words: "The eagle does not escape the storm. The eagle simply uses the storm to lift it higher, and it spreads its mighty wings and rises on the winds that bring the storm." Jonathan understood that statement, for he rode out more storms than most of us, faced more difficulties, and defied so many odds. He had his flock, the Mullen and Thompson clans and extended clans, his amazing and dedicated parents, Art, my oldest brother, and Sheila, his older sisters, Krista and Amy, and his beloved nephew, Hunter. And today, you and I, we've gathered this day to comfort this family, to comfort them, and to comfort each other. Now, I've known Jonathan since he was born, as so many of you have as well. And I remember well that phone call when we'd learned that he had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy and that he might not live to be a teenager. Jonathan had other plans. You know, his spirit and his determination, his deep faith upon which he leaned, that Krista's just so eloquently talked about, and of course, his great sense of humor, which allowed him to see light in dark moments. It gave him to all of us for so much longer than any of us dared hope. And so we come to days like today to celebrate the life of a wonderful person, but to also reflect upon what his living and his dying has taught us. I used to have a poster in my office which said 99 ways to treat a disabled person. And then it said, like a person, like a person, like a person. Jonathan taught us that a disability does not define us. That a wheelchair is just a useful thing to have. And that he was so much more. I can remember going into restaurants in Halifax when Arthur and Sheila would come up for an appointment, where the servers had no idea, how to react to him. Some simply talked to his parents, asking them what he wanted, and Jonathan would not let them get away with that. But then I remember arriving at the Steak and Stein on Yonge Street in Halifax one night. We'd been there before, the crowd of us, and when we sat down, the waitress immediately came over, hands on her hips, and declared, Now this is trouble. I thought I told them that you were not allowed back in here. Well, Jonathan, as you can well imagine, had a big grin at her, and said, "You actually remember me?" And she laughed and said, "Now how could anyone ever forget you? You are trouble. With all your jokes and laughing, and I told them last time, this is one bad crowd." Well, she went away with the order, and Jonathan sat there silently for a minute. And then said quietly, "She really does remember me." He flirted with her every time she came near the table. He was a real person to her, not a wheelchair, not a disabled person. And he loved such moments where people looked beyond the respirator and the equipment and the chair. Well, knowing him changed all of us. That's been said a few times today. He taught us that you can live life fully and to the max without or regardless of our limitations. He loved pushing against the limits, and he loved testing them. He was likely one of the first, if not the very first young man to graduate from university with his degree, and I can see him wheeling across that Halifax Metro Center stage, getting that degree. I think we saw a picture of it there with this big smile on his face. It was contagious. While he was at university, this is a little story I'm going to tell you. Recruiters came to campus to try to sign up students for free tuition if they would join the military. You probably can see where this is going. So one day he called up to my wife and asked his Aunt Linda to meet him at the military recruitment office. No explanation, just meet me and go along with me. Okay. Well, the young recruiter was flabbergasted. But, you can't even pass the physical. Too bad, you're supposed to accommodate the disabled. Don't you have anyone disabled in the military? Well, yes, but injured while with us. And what do? Jonathan asked. Well, work in offices. Well, I can do that, he said. But you have to be prepared to fight. Well, drop me into the war zone in Afghanistan. You'll likely need a parachute around the wheelchair. I can likely shoot with my good hand. But the young recruiter was lost for words. And Jonathan went on, surely you need people who can order supplies and do paperwork. And well, for that matter, I could do your job. This is true. The recruiter was stammering by this time, but. And then Jonathan brought in the heavy artillery. He turned to my wife and said, "Oh, did I forget to tell you I brought my Aunt Linda, not as my support person, but because she's a lawyer." So what do you think, Aunt Linda? Do we have a good case for discrimination? Well, my wife smiled and said, "Well, we better get this recruiter's name correct. Can we have your card?" Well, they left. And my wife looked at Jonathan. "Well, what do you want me to write some letters or do anything, Jonathan?" Good grief, no, he exploded in laughter. I was just tired of their booths on campus when they clearly don't want all of us. That was good for an afternoon's entertainment, wasn't it, Aunt Linda? Oh, what joy. Not so much joy for that recruiter, I don't think. But you know, he did make a point, did he not? He faced discrimination so often. He thought just to have access to so many places that all of us take for granted. His life taught us how much the disabled can contribute if we let them. If we build those ramps and those elevators and doorways that are wide enough. But Jonathan also taught us, that every day counts. Every day counts. And that you wake up every morning grateful for the day. We come today, some of us, with deep Christian faith. Some of us maybe with more doubts than faith. And some of us struggling to find the sacred in our world, wondering what we believe. Some of us wondering what living is all about. But yet we watched someone, who could not scratch his nose or feed himself, find great joy and meaning in life. A poet penned these words: "Only a moment you stayed, what an imprint your footprints have left on our hearts." Jonathan's footprints are on all of us, each and every one of us. We will remember him for the rest of our living. Jonathan loved the image of eagles, perhaps partly because of the scripture from the prophet Isaiah that Pastor Tim just read to us. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. For a young man who could no longer run or walk, these words likely spoke to him differently than they do to most of us. Because he dreamed of soaring with eagles. And when he planned his funeral initially years ago, when we all thought the end was near, he wanted a casket with an eagle on it. And we said our goodbyes, and he went on to live many more years. And that casket sits here today with the urn. Because he then fell in love with the river. At the Mersey River chalets, and changed his mind and wanted ashes in the river flowing. Shall we gather at the river? You think of that hymn. A soldier in the Great War pictured life after death this way. Perhaps passing through the gates of death is like passing quietly through the gate in a pasture fence. On the other side, you keep walking without the need to look back. No shock, no drama, just the lifting of a plank or two in a simple wooden gate in a clearing. Neither pain nor floods of light nor great voices, but just the silent crossing of a meadow. There are so many different images of heaven, all of it shrouded in mystery. But this is as good an image as any. It's a bit like Psalm 23 with its images of valleys and pastures, free from pain, from restrictions, from all of the limitations which his disease inflicted upon it, and with which he learned to live. We miss you so much, Jonathan, but we are so very grateful for your life, for your joy and faith, for all that you taught us about living, about all that those with physical challenges still teach us. And we hope, we pray, that we are all better people for knowing you. Peter Pan called death the next great adventure, and we know that you were always up for any adventure. Go with God. Go with love. Go with grace. Amen and amen. Hunter. Jonathan really wanted you to be around to know him, and I'm so glad he lived those extra years so you got to know him well. Come on up.
Thank you all for coming. Lots of unfamiliar faces and some familiar. Though I have lots of things to say, there's just not enough wrapped in my head. I don't think I can. So I'll just go with the poem. Broken Chains by Ron Tanner. We little knew that morning that God was going to call your name. In life we loved you dearly, in death we do the same. It broke our hearts to lose you. You did not go alone, for part of us went with you. The day God called you home. You left us peaceful memories. Your love is still our guide. And though we cannot see you, you are always at our side. Our family chain is broken, and nothing seems the same. But as God calls us, one by one, the chain will link again.
Let's stand for the final blessing. And just a reminder to you that there will be a reception downstairs, and I think the family will be gathering outside. If it's warm enough, is that the idea? And then you can go down. Am I got that right? You're okay with that? If it's too cool, I guess you just go downstairs. So. If it's too cold, we'll just keep on going downstairs. Okay, all right. So follow the family, I guess. We'll let the family go out first. Okay. Let us conclude with the words of that great church reformer, John Wesley, who, no doubt, Jonathan would echo these words. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, in all the times you can, as long as ever you can. And now may God bless and keep us. May God's face shine upon us and be gracious to us. And may God look upon us with kindness and give us peace this day and forevermore. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Baseball season.